Yeah, hi everybody. Welcome to the most indebted nation in the world, Ireland. And it's Monday the 24th of August. It's just around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And what I'd like to do today is, if I could, in the previous snip, I started talking about these derivatives because I was stunned by the fact that the chief economics correspondent for the Irish Times had done a flag waving exercise, and I hadn't read this anywhere else, but he was saying that the NAMA, the National Assets Management Agency, which is being set up as we just at the moment by Brian Lenihan and the Fianna Fáil coalition, they are about to buy 40 billion euros worth of these derivatives from the Irish banks, the 6 or 7 Irish banks that are involved in the NAMA project. And I got quite annoyed about it because I quoted Warren Buffett and his little spiel on derivatives, him believing that these are economic time bombs. And what I'd like to do is, I'd just like to very quickly read out a definition. Now it's a couple of paragraphs long, but I think it's quite sort of self-explanatory, and it's not just my opinion. It's written by an American economist, an academic, but I think it gives you good insight into what the problems are relating to these derivatives. By the way, I've posted up on you'll see it here, the little connection for you to have a look at this, okay? And I'll just quickly read it. It's called Demystifying Financial Derivatives. It's written by someone called René Stoltz. And what it says is as follows. It says, the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines a derivative in the field of chemistry as a substance that can be made from another substance. Derivatives in finance work on the same principle. These financial instruments promise payoffs that are derived from the value of something else, which is called the underlying. The underlying is often a financial asset or rate, but it does not have to be. Just listen to this. For instance, derivatives exist with payments linked to the S&P 500, another stock exchange, American Stock Exchange, the temperature at Kennedy Airport, the number of bankruptcies among a group of selected companies. Some estimates of the size of the market derivatives put it in excess of $270 trillion, more than 100 times larger than it was 30 years ago, and many times larger than the whole world GDP. It says, when derivative contracts lead to large financial losses, they can make headlines. In recent years, derivatives have been associated with a few truly notable events, including the collapse of Barings Bank and Long-Term Capital Management, a hedge fund whose partners included an economist with a Nobel Prize awarded for breakthrough research in pricing derivatives. Derivatives even had a role in the fall of Enron. Indeed, 2 years ago, Warren Buffett concluded that derivatives are financial weapons of mass destruction, carrying dangers that, while now latent, are potentially lethal. And I don't really think after that we need to go into the dangers that are inherent in these derivatives. What basically they are is, it's large scale gambling. That's what it is. Except there's one difference. If you go to a bookmaker or you go to a racetrack and you give a bookmaker £500 to have on a horse or whatever you gamble on, that's what you lose. With these derivatives, it's not. They are all leveraged. And while you can make a lot of money, you can also lose a lot more money than you've put into to the derivative. So you can see where I'm coming from. The 40 billion that they talk about may end up being a lot more than the 40 billion. And by the way, we don't have in Ireland men who've won the Nobel laureate in economics. Alright? So you know where I'm coming from. That's all I want to say about that matter. The other matter I'd like to discuss is that on September the 12th, I believe they're having a large march from the Garden of Remembrance in Dublin to Dáil, and that's September the 20th, or sorry, September the 12th. And I think that's the day that Dáil are going to discuss the NAMA project. We'll discuss this later, but I'm just throwing it out as an idea. They are going to have a march. It's an anti-NAMA march, and it's been organised by some what would you call them, people's activist groups and anti-NAMA groups. And I think it's probably a very, very good idea, but all I would just be a little bit concerned about is my experience with marches and demonstrations in the past. I found that, especially if there's a lot of what would you call it, underlying hostile feeling among marchers, etc., it can easily turn into violence. And we must remember, this is a legitimate government we have in power in the state. And the bottom line is, while people may feel frustrated in that, I think they should be controlled, and I think the debates and the arguments and the protests that they should put up should be done in a controlled manner and a controlled fashion. The final thing I want to say about that is that it's not beyond the realms of possibility that agents provocateurs would be in a march like that, because it would be very, very much in the interest of the good and the mighty and the establishment, the Irish establishment, especially the banks, that this thing would break up and be a complete shambles as a result of the behaviour of a few people. And that could be very, very easily organised, and it would be portrayed to the world as being an anti-establishment march which was full of thugs and bully boys. And I think that would give that completely the wrong image. I think this thing has to be organised quite well, and I think it has to be stewarded quite well. And I don't think people can be allowed to break up into some sort of social fracas, drunken fracas, and some sort of social mayhem, because it certainly would not be in the interests of the people who would be organising the march for that to happen. Anyway, we'll talk about that nearer the time. I think that's what we'll do. Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye.